You're my only hope.
Hello, Steph. Hey, nobody tells baby what to think. I'm pretty sure of that.
Put baby in the corner and tell baby what's going on. Honestly, go ahead.
So here's the thing. At the end of the day, this is going to end up being a good thing, and I'm not being Pollyanna about it. And here's why. First of all, let's lay to rest the complaint that it took 2 years, a year and a half, to get a special counsel appointed for Donald Trump's crimes, and 2 minutes to get special counsel appointed to look at the documents that Joe Biden had that admittedly he shouldn't have. The reason Merrick Garland appointed Jack Smith when he did was because Donald Trump announced that he was running for president. That made him Merrick Garland's boss's, Joe Biden, only declared opponent in the upcoming presidential election. That's a conflict. Merrick Garland at that point had to appoint special counsel.
Yeah.
He could have done it earlier, but he didn't have to. Now, once Merrick Garland asked the U.S. Attorney in Chicago, right, John Loesch, to do me a favor, take a quick look at this, just do a quick review of the Biden documents thing, and let me know if you think there should be an investigation. And that U.S. Attorney came back and said, you know what, it should probably be investigated, and you should probably appoint a special counsel. Steph, at that moment, the deal was sealed, and Merrick Garland couldn't reject the very advice and opinion he sought. So, yeah, it looks kind of funky that one took 2 years and one took 2 minutes. It actually was done the right way under the special counsel statute.
But here's my biggest question, though. Doesn't the DOJ regulation say there has to be, what's the word? I mean, evidence of criminality or suspicion of criminality? Because I know with our friend Harry Littman said Merrick Garland's decision to appoint a special counsel is being generally praised. As many people saying he had no choice, like you just said. But he says, blah, 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 blah. His reputation has always been as a straight shooter. But in his appointments of both Jack Smith and Robert Turr, the problem, however, is the letter of the regulation not only doesn't dictate the appointment, but arguably even precludes it. That's because it requires Garland to find that a criminal investigation is warranted, and there is zero information from what we know to suggest to anybody, much less Biden, acted with criminal intent.
Steph, not that a crime has been committed, but that an investigation is warranted. Can you imagine if Merrick Garland said, I've looked into it, my boss did nothing wrong, end of story, shut up and go away.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the outcry? And here's the thing. There would be an outcry on the right, which nobody listens to because they're going to complain regardless of what Merrick Garland does. But there would be an outcry on the left from people who really do care about not only conflict, but the appearance of conflict, because we still care about the legitimacy of DOJ.
Right. Well, right. So I did not watch all of them. I don't know if you were on Nicole yesterday. I know you were all over.
I was. Well, yeah, we had a great debate, including I was, going back and forth with Harry. I didn't agree with everything he was saying, though I respect and admire.
But I didn't see this part. I wanted to get your take. Nicole Wallace called out Garland for fearing the Republican Congress, slow-rolling the 1-6 investigation, and only speeding it up after Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony. Garland supporters will deny it, but the expanse of Jack Smith's new subpoenas suggests they should have happened sooner. So what was can you give us the meat of that discussion you had with Nicole?
Yeah, the meat of that was Nicole. I said, listen, Nicole, in my opinion, we needed an attorney general who was sprinting to the finish line to try to save our democracy. And she asked me, well, what kind of a pace do you think he has set? I said, you know what? It has been a long, slow, leisurely walk by Merrick Garland. And that, unfortunately, worked to the detriment of our democracy. And part of what I base that on is not just our frustration, Steph, that justice has been too darn long coming for Donald Trump, but once Jack Smith was appointed, November 18th, the man has been going 1,000 miles an hour, scorched earth. He just issued subpoenas in early December. I was on with Carol Leonnig as well, and it's her great reporting. He issued subpoenas in early December that asked for more than 24 categories of evidence that we all kind of know is incriminating. And Steph, those are subpoenas that were never issued by Merrick Garland for the 18 months he was overseeing this investigation. After this dark chapter in American history is all said and done, and Trump and company are in orange jumpsuits, we're going to need to do an autopsy on why the Department of Justice failed to meet the moment, why it slow-walked the Trump investigation, And that's something that we're going to need to learn from.
Well, and also, I certainly hope that there's what's the word? Some speed in justice in the Biden special counsel, because you and I both know, or fairly certain they're going to find nothing. But let's hope that doesn't take 2 years, so that for 2 years they can scream, both sides do it. Because as you said on Twitter, this is night and day, these two cases, which is why at first I was like, okay, fine, so good. This will make it easier for, Jack Smith to charge, because you will see the stark differences. But what do you think about that in terms of the pace of this new investigation?
I agree with you. This new special counsel, Robert Hur, had better move at light speed. We can't conclude that there's no there, but every single sign, every indication is there is no there. Because these things have some very superficial similarities. Two men had documents that they shouldn't have had. That's where the similarities end. Because, Joe Biden, once he realized it, he told the National Archives, he told the Department of Justice, he conducted a search of every location where other documents could be. They found some, they turned them over. End of story. Donald Trump did the exact opposite. I won't go through the litany of what Donald Trump did, but here's one of the important distinctions, Steph, that I haven't heard people talk about enough. Whereas Joe Biden's team conducted a sweeping search, including of Joe Biden's garage, right? Found a few more documents and turned them over. Do you know Donald Trump is still in court right now, and federal prosecutors are demanding that he certify that he has given back all the dang documents he took, and he won't even do it now.
Yeah.
All this time later.
Yeah.
Talk about a stark difference in the way these two men handled the documents issues.
One last way to put it, just want to get your take. Andrew Weissman said, is kind of both sides. Unclear how A.G. Garland can justify, based on Biden doc's known facts, the appointment of a special counsel under DOJ guidelines, but worth noting that such an appointment will have the effect of making it more viable, palatable for Jack Smith to bring Mar-a-Lago charges. Because, I know we were saying Barb McQuaid, I think we talked a few days ago, was, Barb McQuaid was saying this could complicate charging Trump for the Mar-a-Lago documents. But I mean, I assume she means politically, because as you just said, legally, these cases could not be clearer. There could not be a starker difference. So I don't know whether you feel like this means, like, politically it's easier to but isn't the DOJ supposed to be free of that kind of calculation, right?
Yeah, DOJ is supposed to act in an apolitical manner when it comes to charging decisions. But I actually think politically this is going to end up being a good thing overall. And here's why. You already have Republicans yelling and screaming that, oh my God, what Biden did is so terrible. It must be investigated. It must be prosecuted. So let's take a step back, sport, because if you're saying what Joe Biden did, having classified documents when he shouldn't have, Donald Trump did it to the 1,000th power. So thank you, Republicans, for finally acknowledging that Donald Trump needs to be prosecuted for his crimes. I mean, listen, the Republicans are not deep thinkers on this one.
Yeah. Well, and I was saying they're always going to scream like babies, because that's what they do. That it just seems like we always bend over backwards. That's got to be a, Republican prosecutor, whether it's, a Republican head of the FBI or prosecutor, whether it's Comey or Mueller or Chris Wray or now this tour guy who, it makes me a little hinky that he worked with Rosenstein to do whatever they did with the, does that give you pause at all, this Trump appointed?
It does. I don't know why Merrick Garland is forever feeling like not only does he have to bend over backwards to try to help restore the legitimacy and the public's perception of the Department of Justice, he's forever reaching for Republicans. John Loesch, the first U.S. attorney in Chicago, Republican, one of only two Republican U.S. attorneys that were appointed by Trump that remain in the position. And then this guy, Hur, also a long time, apparently hardcore Republican, also a long time, a Department of Justice employee who is pretty well regarded. But that doesn't mean he can take all of the politics out of himself. I hope he can. But because that is the kind of thing that really doesn't help with the right. Because like you say, Mueller was a lifelong Republican, and he became an angry Democrat in the disinformation campaign against him. And the same will continue to hold true. So I think Merrick Garland kind of falls into this trap each and every time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's an enormous concern.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is Republicans operate under no such rules of fairness. They're going to investigate the investigators. They're going to. Kevin McCarthy's talking about vacating. Is that the word you use for one of Trump's impeachments? That's not even a thing. It's like, but they have no compunction. Right? I mean, this one hopefully will also accrue to our benefit, but Kevin McCarthy agreed to release all security camera footage of the January 6th attack on the Capitol as part of one of the backroom deals he made to get the speakership with Matt Gaetz. Well, once again, I say good, release it, because,
Absolutely.
What is that to prove?
Transparency, Transparency is always a good thing. Now, do I trust McCarthy to actually release it all or to release it selectively? I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. But listen, the more transparency, the better.
So, speaking of which, the J6 committee had some 30 gigabytes of material it never shared with the public. That was nonetheless handed over to DOJ for their own investigation. That obviously came out in this Oath Keepers trial. Among the evidence not admitted was including text messages from Ivanka Trump, Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to Ron Johnson, who obviously offered to transmit the fake slate of electors to Pence, to transcripts of a Secret Service agents who reportedly contradicted claims made by former Secret Service Chief Tony Ornato. What does this tell you? I mean, why was this not released to the public and to the DOJ? Right. It seems like this is the good stuff.
First of all, anything that the committee decided not to release to the public, but to give only to the federal prosecutors, feels to me like really sensitive, important, incriminating information that they thought was so important, they wanted it to be directly in the hands of the Department of Justice so it could be used and exploited in a criminal investigation of Trump without it being thrown into the public square, because that has real challenges for prosecutors once evidence is out there publicly, because it allows witnesses to mold their testimony based on evidence that they see that they're not privy to in a first-hand way.
Yeah.
So I think it's potentially a good sign. J6 decided this is the public-facing presentation we wanted to make, and DOJ, here's some really important stuff that we wanted to put directly into your hands.
Yeah. Quickly, I mentioned false electors. This also seems significant. 3 of the state presidential electors in Michigan who followed the law and backed Joe Biden's win in their state are now suing the slate of fraudulent electors who were chosen as alternates to flip the state to Trump. They're asking the judge to declare the scheme by their Trump-backing counterparts was illegal under Michigan law. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel had referred the case to the DOJ and said there was absolutely enough evidence to warrant charges against the Republicans who signed the false certificate. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and I'm glad Dana Nessel is now going to go after it herself, right? And she is going to be criminally investigating the fake elector scheme in her state. That's a good thing. More prosecutors, the merrier, quite frankly. But I think, it kind of takes me back to Jack Smith, who has launched a whole bunch of subpoenas on the fake elector thing and on the Trump PACs that seemed more fraud than fundraising. And on, here's the one I love that didn't get a lot of chatter. He subpoenaed witnesses and said, I want to know who paid your legal bills, and I want you to produce your attorney retainer fees. And I think that was the result of us all learning that Cassidy Hutchinson was being represented by Stefan Passantino, who was on Team Trump, not even on Team Hutchinson, his own client. Yeah. And so, listen, I think all of this is for the good. There is a reason we have a saying that third time's a charm, Steph. Mm-hmm. We had Bob Mueller, he couldn't bring it home. We had Merrick Garland, he didn't get it done. Third time's a charm. I'm not saying, you've now fooled us twice, but I'm saying given the bona fides of Jack Smith prosecuting Republican criminals, Democrat criminals, CIA officer criminals, and others, I think the third time is going to be a charm.
Well, you're mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
Real quick, on the justice front, you tweeted, what has DA Fani Willis been doing? Defeating in court all the scared little boys who didn't want to testify about Trump's crime. The littlest General Mike Flynn, the littlest Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the littlest Senator Lindsey Graham. Willis beat each of them like a drum. So, I mean, there is, again, when people saying what's taking so long, it's on tape. Part of it is all of this obstruction, but what do you think is happening there?
Fani Willis quietly sawed the Justice Wood in front of her. The special grand jury is done. They've made a recommendation. We don't know what it is, but I'll bet my $1 betting limit that it is that there was evidence of crime and people should be prosecuted. Fani Willis is now back in the regular grand jury in Georgia, the one that has the power to indict. And hold on tight, because if you ask me today, I think that's the first criminal indictment of Donald Trump we're going to see.
Yay! And Glenn Kirschner is officially part of our family. I was already married to you in my mind until I run into you with your wife, and then it all blows.